Teddy Covers representing Las Vegas, Nevada. Teddy Covers, how are you doing on this Thursday morning?
I'm doing great, man. We got football tonight. You know, you're waiting all week. When's there going to be football? When's there going to be football? 2 days in a row we didn't have it, Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm feeling good on a Thursday, man. How about you?
I'm feeling great, but this Thursday nighter makes me extremely uncomfortable, and I don't have a man. How about the Browns move that you talked about as soon as the week was over last week after their serving of humble pie, and then I make the bet on the pick six. I lock in the Browns this morning at -2.5, but don't bet it. Don't make an official play. Think, oh, don't worry. I'm making an official play on the show, then I'll bet it right after. Sure enough, Darno has mono, and I don't have the bet in, and it's not an official play, and I get screwed over. But whatever. I have it in the Pick Six contest. Interesting stuff there. But how are you handling this Thursday nighter? Because it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Even the under makes me uncomfortable. Although I get, like, if I was given a free play, sure, I'd be on the Bucks +7 and the under. But if I'm taking my money out of my pocket, I don't think I want anything to do with this Thursday nighter, and I don't plan to make any moves at this point. Although I do love a couple of our guys. A couple of our guys are on the over, depending on where you shop, 37.5, 38. Jones over rush yards. I do think that's a nice spot. Pigeon Depot on it, DX Filer on that. Jones over rush yards tonight. But other than that, nothing appeals to me. Is there a move you're making on the Thursday nighter?
Yeah, I put a +7 in my pocket. And I put a +7 in my pocket with Tampa for a couple of reasons, but it starts with 2 misleading final scores from last week. And when we're talking about betting week 2 of the NFL, the number one thing I'm trying to do is take advantage of overreactions from week 1. So what happened in week 1? Well, the final score said 49ers 31, Bucks 17. If you watch the game, you watch Tampa's defense dominate the line of scrimmage. You watch Tampa run the football all afternoon. You watch Tampa shut down Jimmy Garoppolo, and then you watch Jameis Winston make a bunch of mistakes. So there was a lot more good than bad for Tampa. The quarterback made mistakes, but the defense played well. They ran the football. The secondary played well. These were 3 issues coming into the season. You were like, maybe not so much. Carolina's final score, 30-27. They gave the Rams everything they could handle. No, they didn't. If you watch the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. LA did whatever they wanted. Carolina had nothing defensively. The offense was all dink and dunk. Cam Newton couldn't complete a pass longer than 17 yards. Career low, -2 rushing yards. Defense it's not a team I'm excited about laying a touchdown with. So I think Tampa is better than their week 1 final score would indicate, and Carolina is worse than their week 1 final score would indicate. And it's just that simple. I'm catching 7 in a game I should be catching 4 in. I'll take the 7.
You know, that breakdown makes a ton of sense. I mean, I'm pretty much sold after that breakdown. I still have the discomfort backing Winston in any situation, and that might keep me off. But that's a very, very sharp, strong breakdown that makes a ton of sense. All right, there's our Thursday nighter. We have our guys. So, you know, basically, Babano and Teddy Covers, you know, reading on the same literature right now, making the same angles, finding the same angles, but the way Teddy put it, I mean, almost makes me want to go to the window right now and make a bet on the Buccaneers. I'm going to hold off at this point about making anything because I just don't trust Winston at all. But great breakdown, Teddy. Are you doing anything on this MLB afternoon baseball card?
I didn't even, to be honest, there are days, you know, at this time of the year, there are days where I'm going to be able to focus on baseball. There are days I'm not. Today was a day where I was working on NFL and college football. And I haven't even looked at the MLB card. So it just, unfortunately that happens. But for me, baseball takes a backseat to football at this time of year, and it's just how it is. So I do not have strong opinions on today's MLB card. In fact, I haven't put a whole lot of time into it.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Eric Nisbet, loving that analysis from you, Teddy. Headshot says 49ers had a ton of mental errors. I wouldn't bank on Tampa. Says also remember that was 49ers' first game with their healthy team together. Carolina defense isn't much worse than the Niners. Dom Ricci took the over in the Pick Six contest. Gas Station Sushi's max betting the over in Rams Saints. Wow, that's an interesting look. I'm going to copy and paste that right now. That's an interesting look. As you said you were looking at NFL. It is getting time where we should start really focusing on NCAA football because, you know, the games are coming up so soon. But I jumped on. I made my 2-unit play. Falcons-Eagles over 51. I jumped on that. I'm on the Browns -2.5. I'm on UCF -7.5. Those are my only looks right now on the card or in the contest. Do you have any other looks that you're going to jump on in NFL?
Well, I played 2 or 3 for what it's worth. I have the Browns at 2.5, and I also have Central Florida minus 7.5 against Stanford. So I'm with you on that. I didn't touch the total on Sunday Night Football, although I wouldn't talk you out of that over. I certainly wouldn't. Again, last year, if you remember, Eagles and the Falcons, week 1. Was that a 16? I think it was 16-12 with the final score. I can't remember 16-12 or 18-12. Neither team could move the football. And Philly's defense really did a number on Matt Ryan and company. And then Atlanta went back home, and each of the next 3 weeks, 38, 35, 41, they had no problems. So the question is, was it week 1 where the Falcons' offense just doesn't work? They take a little bit longer to come out of the gate than some teams, especially when they're on the road, a team with a very strong home field edge. Or is it Philadelphia? Atlanta's the offense didn't work last week, and it's the Eagles' defense that, after they got gashed early by Washington, just shut them down. I mean, what was it, 32-3, that run that the Eagles had in the middle of that ball game, where it was as one-sided as it gets. And then they played the prevent defense at the end, allowed the Redskins to score that late touchdown. But Philly's defense was a dominant unit on that field for about a half in that ball game. Don't know if that's going to work against the Falcons, but again, they did shut this team down last year. But I saw some stuff from Atlanta in the opener I didn't like at all. It's an offensive line that's banged up right now with Lindstrom out, and that's a number 1 all draft choice. Boom, gone. So I worry about the offensive line. And it's a Falcons defense that, they weren't good last year. We said it was injuries. They weren't good the year before. They said, it was circumstances. They weren't good the year before. We said it was talent. Well, now they're healthy, and the talent level's supposed to be there. And once again, last week, Atlanta's defense didn't even come close to getting stops against Minnesota. That concerns me about the Falcons in this one. So from a side, I would only look at Philly, and from a total, I could only look at the over. I don't have to play either one, and I might not. Other looks in the NFL that stand out to me, heck, there's a bunch of – look, as Pittsburgh goes up and up and up, it's 4.5s are popping up. I get more and more interest in the Seattle side in this ball game. The betting markets are looking at the Seahawks box score. All right, Seattle got outgained by 200 yards, almost 200 yards against Cincy last week. And they were lucky to win the game. And, they were +3 in turnovers and didn't cover. And the market's saying, garbage, Seattle's garbage. Look at that, garbage. That's what the Seahawks have done for 10 years under Pete Carroll. It's not about yardage battles. It's about turnover battles, and Seattle wins them. They have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over and a defense that forces turnovers. And when you find teams that are going to have a positive turnover margin year in, year out, like the Seahawks, like the Patriots, that are designed to have a positive turnover margin, that are built to have a positive turnover margin, man, those are value teams. So everyone's like, well, Pittsburgh, they just ran against New England, and the Seattle team's no good. I'm not buying any of that. I think the Seahawks are very live against the Steelers on Sunday afternoon. I
agree. I absolutely agree. Corey Simmons saying, I'm in class right now. Can't hear, but reading the closed captions. Corey Simmons says, what's the taint play of the day? The taint play of the day is the Cubs. I like those looks. Melissa Glenn in the chat says, been following Teddy since his very first Sports Bit show. I've learned and grown so much as a handicapper by listening to his wisdom. So thank you. That's coming straight from Melissa Glenn.
Thank you, Melissa.
A lot of this makes a ton of sense. I'm going to make more moves on this NFL card, and will really want to break some games down with you again on tomorrow's show. But right now, let's move over to college football. We've had a couple questions asked of you. First off, Worldwide 1873 says, Teddy, Purdue versus TCU. Any side there? Sinclair might be hurt. And Matt Randall has already told us that he likes the TCU Purdue over. Teddy Covers, how are you handling TCU Purdue? So
I believe that Sindelar is out. No, I'm seeing questionable. I did not read the last report I read was not a positive one. And this is a bet where I want to know if Purdue's quarterback's going to play if I'm going to get involved. It's that simple. I do not want an over, and I do not want Purdue if Sindelar is not in the game. But if he does play, Purdue may be live. The markets like Gary Patterson. They always have. There's been he's a coach who at times has gotten his Horned Frogs team to overachieve. Defensively, TCU looks a good notch or two better than Purdue. But that Boilermakers offense is tricky, man. It is. And Jeff Brom's been designing schemes to beat coaches like Gary Patterson for a long time now, doing it fairly successfully. So it's not a game that I plan on betting on, but I know this much. If I'm going to be on the Boilermakers, I want the quarterback. If the quarterback doesn't play, it's clearly TCU or pass. There's a little bit of correlation between side and total here. TCU they can win a shootout potentially, but that's not what they want to play. I think Purdue correlates with over the most. Purdue's not going to win this game or cover this point spread if they're not getting 4 touchdowns. I think that's the minimum. 24, 27, 28. Purdue's got to get there in order to hang around because I think TCU is going to get there. So in my mind, TCU will correlate with under a little bit. Purdue will correlate with over a little bit more.
Makes sense. He also has a question right underneath. He says, also wondering what you think on USC BYU. USC opening up at -4.5, still at 4.5, although Heritage is hanging at 4, as is UWager. This total opened up at 55. It's gone all the way up to 57 at Heritage, 56.5 everywhere else, and 55.5 at Pinnacle. So very important where you're shopping for that total. Teddy, USC Brigham Young.
If I had to play it, I would play the Trojans. I do not have to play it, and I doubt. I don't expect to get to the window with this one at all. I don't trust. Let's start with this. I don't trust BYU very much. I don't trust BYU at all. The offense really hasn't worked in 2 games against decent defenses, and certainly a pretty good. Utah's got a good defense. Tennessee's got an okay defense, which was fine until they fell apart with 20 seconds left on the clock. But that's what Tennessee's doing this year. USC could do that too, and it wouldn't shock anyone. The Trojans, we know how poorly coached this team is, and they found a quarterback last week in Slovis who, again, it's one thing to come off the bench and light up a defense, or in your first start at home, lighting up a deep. It's another thing to do it on the road against a quality defense. So I do have my concerns about USC moving the football here. But from a spot standpoint, miracle win for BYU last week. Huge celebration, beat an SEC foe. I don't love the spot for the Cougs, and I don't think the Cougs are any good. So I guess it's Trojans or pass, but I obviously Slovis do it on the road against a solid defense again before I anoint him the second coming at USC for quarterback. I don't know that I trust him in his first road start. I will pass this game.
We'll be passing this game. I enjoyed, if anybody has questions from the chat for Teddy, just hit me with them. But I enjoyed what we did last week. And that was after I was done our live Pick 6 show. And it's every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock with myself and Boss and Ragu, Boss and the Sauce. The next day I asked about some of their looks, and I enjoyed that. I thought that worked. Sure. So why don't we do that again? I'm going to start with Ragu's first action on his card. Arkansas State, Georgia. So Ragu wrote the Arkansas State UNLV game like a script, and we won easily with Arkansas State. And, he likes what he saw from Arkansas State, and he's uncomfortable with this 33.5. But the first half is at 20, and he thinks Georgia's going to run all over Arkansas State in the first half. That's Ragu's first look, is Georgia first half. I'll pull out what the line is right now, but what do you think of that look, Georgia first half at home against Arkansas State?
So I like the concept very much. The concept is a team goes on the road and wipes out a weaker foe, feels good about themselves. Now they're going to go on the road and face a juggernaut, and the next week's not usually so good. To put it mildly. They got their win, and it's what's going to happen in SEC country is going to happen in SEC country. So it's something that makes a ton of sense to me. A team that has success one week on the road in a non-conference affair, you don't always like them on the road the next week doing that same thing, especially when they step up. So I like the concept. I don't tend to get involved in a lot of games like this. It's just my own personal betting style, the 5 touchdown favorites, the 6 touchdown favorites. When I do get involved, I'm more likely to get involved for the first half play. So I have no problem whatsoever with that selection. Not anything I bet, but I know, I'm not going to, no, I don't like that. It's fine. Good luck.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice breakdown. And Jarvis Wilson, I'll be copying and pasting your questions as well. Let's move on to Ragu's second look. It's Wake Forest. He likes Wake Forest. And when he was breaking it down, I was thinking of maybe making the move on Wake Forest first half and full game. Should I pump the brakes in that spot?
So I'd rather have Wake than North Carolina. I'll tell you that flat out. I think the Tar Heels after that 2-0 start are a little bit overvalued right now. And of course, now they're hitting the highway. They played a true road game for the first time, which is definitely a concern for me here. And Wake, I mean, we've seen it from Wake 2 weeks in a row. They're explosive on offense. They got playmakers all over the field, and we're not used to seeing a Demon Deacons program with that level of skill position talent. I think they got it. I lean over in this ball game. The markets got there before I did, unfortunately. And if I had to play it, I would lay with Wake, even against a North Carolina team that's overachieved early on and doesn't look to be way down talent-wise. Not like Fedora left the cupboard bare for Mac Brown. But the lean is Wake, the lean is over. I haven't bet either one.
I like hearing this. So you're backing Ragu spots right now. Next spot, we both know, is UCF. We both like that look. He's all over that. And then the final spot is, and I have a question mark beside it, so maybe I can't remember if I was wondering about it or if he was, so I'd have to go back and check. But is Pitt against Penn State? So it's Pitt and the under. What do you think of that Pitt and the under spot?
You know, I mean, Penn State has one of the strongest home field advantages in college football. And it really shows. It shows year in, year out on that field. Franklin's he's a bully coach. You know, Franklin will run up scores when he gets the opportunity. So I tend not to look to step in front of Penn State at home. I've learned that the hard way. And even last week, you know, a game where they were outplayed for a half by Buffalo. When all said and done, you know, Penn State took a ton of money in that game, but if you bet them early, you still cash your ticket. They won by 32. That's what they're explosive. And that worries me about a Pitt team that isn't explosive on offense. Penn State scores too easy. But again, it's not a game that I bet, so it's not a game I'm going to try to talk you out of. It's just not one that I'm involved with.
All right, and Viper MB says Penn State will wipe the floor with Pitt. Twadi Latte from Pittsburgh says Pitt could get shut out. So that's if Pitt gets shut out or if Pitt gets completely shut down, is the under in play?
Yeah. If Pitt gets shut down or they're shut out, the under is absolutely in play. But again, this isn't one of the stronger correlations. But yeah, it's because Penn State is capable of covering the spread in a higher scoring game. They're capable of getting to 40 plus by themselves. They're also capable of covering the spread in a lower scoring game where Pitt's offense doesn't work very well. So I was thinking there might be some correlation somewhere. I don't think that Pitt's going to be covering the spread in a very high-scoring ball game. Pitt, there's at least a modest correlation between Pitt and under.
Yes, and that's what Ragu is saying. The low total makes me like Pitt. All right, those are Ragu spots from the Pick Six show. Let's talk about what Big Boss was thinking on the Pick Six show. First was Kansas. Now that they've hit plus 21, I'll have to double check that they're still at 21, plus 21 in the Kansas game. What do you think of that spot?
It is still 21 just about everywhere right now, and my answer to that I can put in 2 words. Hell no! No, I don't want Kansas. Why? You cannot make money in college football on the very worst teams. There's no way. You go back and look. Go back and look at the teams that finish 4-8 or worse every year and go through all of them, and you'll see. 5-7 ATS. The best go 6-6 ATS. Lots of 4-8s, lots of 3-9s. The bad teams, it's really hard to get the money. Boston College was going to hand the ball off 50 times in this game. They're capable of breaking off a touchdown run on any one of those 50 handoffs. When the backups come in, Boston College is bad. I mean, the one thing that Kansas has none of is quality depth. I mean, none of. So if Miles empties the bench at all, they're in trouble. And BC is going to just, I see BC continuing to score throughout just by handing the football off. So I don't want maybe Kansas defense steps up somehow, makes a couple of plays, but talent-wise, program-wise, Kansas is the worst of all the Power 5 conference schools. I'll take Oregon State over Kansas. I'll take, whatever drag you want to give me. I'll take Rutgers over Kansas. That is a program that is at the very bottom right now, and I'm not looking to back one of the very worst teams in college football, even plus 21. BC or pass?
BC or pass even at 21. So that's Big Boss's first look. His second look was another spot I was thinking of doubling up on, but I've waited too long, I think, and I'm going to pump the brakes. We said that the number to stop was 18, and it's now at 18 at Heritage and 5 dimes. Another spot where paralysis by overanalysis gives you the worst line, and when do you take it? And I'm talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes here. Ohio State at Indiana. He likes Ohio State he likes Ohio State full game, but when he was breaking it down, I was like, oh, this is a double up spot, and I probably should have made the move. I did not make the move. Ohio State, Indiana. Do you still like Ohio State even at 17?
No, I missed it. But there's a question about the Hoosiers quarterback right now. Penix has a quote undisclosed injury and is questionable this week. So you want to be aware of his status for sure if you're going to get involved on the Indiana side in this ball. I mean, the markets are moving like he's not going to play, like he's hurt. I too was looking at the Ohio State side. I didn't get to the window with it, and I missed the 13.5, and that was a number that made me mad. There was 13.5 out there. There was one. I'm like, I want that. Oh, I didn't get it. And the 14s were gone, and the 15s were gone. And I'm like, all right, I missed it. You're not going to be able to get every bet down that you want to get down. If you're sitting in front of your screen 24/7, if you're watching the SBR odds screen and you're sitting there, and as soon as it pops, you can do it. But if you actually have a life and you're not focused 100% on watching a screen all day long, you're going to miss some numbers. You're going to miss some bets. It's inevitable. It's part of the equation. That game's coming down off the board at a couple of books right now based on Penix's status. So if you can get a bet down on Ohio State right now as we're talking, might not be a bad thing to do. I think this one could come up a notch or two higher still if Penix doesn't play. But again, we don't know. All I saw was undisclosed for the reason for his questionable status for a Saturday. So that's definitely something worth monitoring. A team starting quarterback can be worth something. In some games, not in the Mississippi State game, it's not worth anything. But in the Ohio State-Indiana game, it is worth something.
Interesting. We also had a spot where he was talking about backing Syracuse in this big Clemson-Syracuse spot. And there's also been talk about what move to make on the total. Some people liking this over. And, man, Pinnacle opens this over at 58.5. It's now at 65.5. At what point do you think that the under should be the look? Clemson-Syracuse, Boss thinking that Syracuse at plus 28 might be a look. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a look. I wouldn't talk you out of that wager. But just as I was talking a moment ago, how I don't want my money on the very worst teams in college football. Boy, I'm not looking for a lot of spots to step in front of the very best teams. I'm really not. We know that Syracuse punched Clemson in the mouth last year. So Clemson's going to come focused. I know that Syracuse got their ass kicked last week and couldn't stop anyone. And I know that their offense hasn't worked in 2 games. DeVito is no Dungy at quarterback, and that's very clear already. So while, the value, there's a ton of value in theory on Syracuse in this ballgame, I don't think that if Clemson's beating them down, they're not going to stop. But Clemson's not going to. Clemson didn't put anyone away last week. They dominated the game and didn't cover the point spread, and now they're laying more than that here to another decent foe. So it's another one of the games, lots of games to talk about and consider. This is not one that I'm even close to getting the betting window with. I don't want the dog, and I don't want the favorite.
Interesting breakdown. Jarvis Wilson says, can someone explain to me why some people are backing West Virginia this weekend? What is your spot on this West Virginia game?
So I was asking the exact same question. Literally, I have a couple of phone calls every week. That I talk to guys who I've been talking to for, mostly for many years, but a couple guys who, over time you build up contacts, you want to talk, run through the card with people who you respect. And it was a game that absolutely stood out to me, that NC State, West Virginia. And my thought was, NC State's cheap. Why isn't this line at 7? Well, how can there be any West Virginia money? And my buddy's like, no, this is what they're looking at for West Virginia. They're like, the program's not way down. They had a bad game last week. They're not hopeless. And who died and left NC State is a team that you want to lay a touchdown with on the road. All of which makes sense. But I look at West, the teams that are going through scheme changes and regime changes. Those aren't teams I want in September. I can understand why NC State's laying this price. That's the way I would look, but smart people I know have been have guidelined me enough on this one to say, hey, maybe you watch that. Again, there's what, 60, 70 games on the board every week in college football. If you find you're looking for some, but you don't need to bet most. You don't need to bet all. And this is one I'm not gonna make a wager on. I think West Virginia might stink, and my gut reaction is to bet against them. But the markets aren't there yet, and some people that I respect aren't there yet either. So I'll be passing the game.
Going to be passing. My guy Guillermo Zertucci, a spectacular thoroughbred handicapper, says South Carolina going up against Alabama. This total opened up at 60. It's now at 62. And we've been, although Bookmaker, BetOnline, and Heritage have dropped it from 25, Pinnacle opened up at 25.5 and is still at 25.5. Do you think South Carolina can cover at home?
Well, it's the same story we just talked about with Clemson, Syracuse. The Alabamas of the world. I'm not looking to step in front of Alabama. All right. At the end of the season, and we can go back year after year. I can grab one of the books over here. Look at the end of the season. Alabama 8-5 ATS, 8-6, 9-5, 7-6. They don't have losing seasons, bad losing seasons against the spread every year, despite the fact that they're the most public team in college football, despite the fact that they're the most highest priced team in college football. They're elite. They're not a team I want to step in front of. And here's, Bentley's out for the season. Not like Bentley was great by any stretch of the imagination, but, do you want a new QB against this Alabama? You know that Bama's scoring on defense in this game at once, twice. I just don't want to do it. And it's not like, oh, yeah, now I'm going to back Alabama here. No, I'm not going to lay close to 4 touchdowns on the road against a decent SEC squad, a game that could be lower scoring. No, it's an easy pass. It's a game that, yeah, I don't want the favorite. I don't want the dog. So, no, I'm not going to get involved. But that's, again, a lot of people like to bet the top 5, the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, the Ohio States. I don't bet a lot of those games. You don't want to be on those teams, and you don't want to be against them. The very top squads, it's hard to find value with, and they're good enough that you really are not in any rush to step in front of them. So, not like I'm not looking at those games and find the occasional spot, but, the juggernauts are every bit, in many ways, as difficult to back or bet against as some of the bottom feeders are. I'm like, you can't bet these bottom feeders because it'll kill you at the end of the year when you add it all up. The big favorites and the super public chalk teams are the same way in a sense. Even though, like I said, they do have winning spread records when all said and done. It's just not in my makeup. I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, let's lay 25.5 on the road with Alabama this week. It's just not how I handicap.
I get it. It's important for us to hear this. Very, very important. A couple games we haven't talked about. We're running out of time here. One of them is Duke, Middle Tennessee. Duke on the road as a favorite. This total opened up at 51.5 and it's gone down to 51 or 50.5. Do you trust Duke as a road favorite? Teddy covers.
I think it's cheap. First reaction was cheap. The second reaction after I looked at it was cheap. And there's a little bit of love for Middle Tennessee State. They moved the football in week 1 at Michigan, but it's a program that had the same quarterback, the coach's son, for 6 years. And when you're breaking in a new QB and you're stepping up in class a little bit, the Duke opener against Alabama is not what we're going to see this week. I could only lay with the Blue Devils. I think that's a reasonable price to pay against a team from Murfreesboro that, it's a big game for Middle Tennessee. I'm not convinced that, but it's another one where, okay, the box score looked good against Michigan, so now this team's getting respect. A little bit too much respect. I would take Duke if I played the game.
Would take Duke. We have touched briefly on this game, but I'd like to hear it once more, and that's Texas Tech, Arizona. This total keeps going up. We've now seen it reach 77 at Heritage and UWager and Pinnacle. And Texas Tech just 2-point favorites on the road in Arizona. Are you making a move on this game?
If I was, I could only look at the road favorite and potentially the over. I think that Texas Tech's offense is more than capable of moving the football against Arizona. That's what Texas Tech does, even in the post-Kingsbury era. They're going to chuck the football around. It's a good quarterback. They're loaded with receivers. Arizona defensively is spotty. And, when Hawaii got to 45 against this team, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Texas Tech get in the 40s in this ballgame. In fact, I'm confident that Texas Tech is going to approach or exceed 40 points in this ballgame. The question is if that Red Raiders defense is going to be able to stop Khalil Tate. And, Tate at times has been just, jaw-dropping, wow-inducing. And the Red Raiders defense isn't necessarily a defense that I trust to get stops when tired in the fourth quarter in a late-night game in Arizona. So I understand the over money here. I wouldn't bet under in this game. I do think Texas Tech's the better of these two teams, but I'm not in love with laying the price. I lean that way. And if you're going to bet it, don't lay a field goal. It's 2 now. I think this will be 3 by kickoff. So if you are going to bet it, I would bet it now and not wait. That's the one advice that I think is real for this game. But I lean Red Raiders, and I lean over, and I doubt I get to the window with either one.
Doubt he gets to the window with everyone. Well, let's close this up with what Babano is on. Babano liking Virginia. He got it at 7. Now it's 7.5. That's a big, that hook is, it's a crucial number to get it at 7. But he still likes that 7.5, and he likes going back to the well with the over. What do you think of Babano's looks on Florida State, Virginia?
I certainly wouldn't bet either one the other way. No question I wouldn't bet that. I really wouldn't. I like Virginia. I like Bronco. I like the Cavs with a chance to beat an opponent that has stymied them. From a value standpoint, though, I don't love it. You look at the games of the year on this, and Florida State wasn't a 7-point dog in this game, and they just got embarrassed against a lesser foe last week. Sometimes you see the teams that get slapped around a little bit when they're not paying attention. All of a sudden, the next week they're catching points and they're paying attention. So I lean Virginia. I'm not getting the window. Over does make a lot of sense. Although betting over in Bronco Mendenhall games over the years hasn't exactly been a recipe for success.
I hear that.
So I guess,
did
I answer the question? I don't even know. Babano, it's a pass for me. Good luck, Babano. Good guy.
Great guy. Great guy. I love it. I love these breakdowns, and I can't wait for tomorrow because we'll talk about the Friday night NCAA football slate, and then we will lock in some more action on the Saturday card. Teddy Covers, what a treat it is to roll with you guys. It's just great. Al Hard says, Jimmy, I feel like I'm in class. Thanks for all the great info, Teddy. Respect. Yes, Teddy, respect. Thank you so much for joining us. Teddy, where can we find you on Twitter, and what do you get up to on these weekends on Twitter?
What do I get up to?
Yeah.
I get up to about 100, I don't know, 98.6. Follow me on Twitter at Teddy_covers. We're going to tweet all weekend as we're watching the games. Hopefully give you some information that you're looking for. And, of course, show links like this one. We always tweet that out at Teddy_covers.
There he is, Teddy Covers. Thank you so much for joining us. We love having you. You can catch Teddy Covers right here Monday to Friday on Betting with the Bag morning shows. Enjoy your afternoon in Vegas. And, thank you for all your insights.